Butte County LAFCo meeting of November 3rd, 2022. It hasn't changed since this morning early. Our first order of business is please join me in a salute to the flag of our nation. Ready? Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Dear God. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Boland, Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Here.
Chair Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner McGreehan, Commissioner Sharman,
Here.
Commissioner Betts,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Chuck Reynolds,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Don Rust, alternate Commissioner Larry Bradley, Commissioner McGreehan.
Here.
Perfect timing. Are there any errors, corrections, or changes to the agenda? Okay, so first order of business is a consent agenda. Was there any interest by the public of pulling anything from the consent agenda? No cards or anything?
No.
Okay, would any member up here like to pull anything? I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. I'll call the roll.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Sharman,
Yes.
Commissioner Betts,
Aye.
alternate Commissioner Reynolds,
Here. Sorry.
Either way.
Aye.
Okay, first up on our regular agenda is a notice public hearing. It's the city of Chico, El Monte Avenue annexation number 1.
All right, thank you, commissioners, and good morning. So the city of Chico, as part of the island annexation agreement, as you recall back in March, we entered in a contract with them to annex the 4 remaining islands in the city of Chico. And so the third one that we're hearing is referred to as the El Monte Island annexation. It's a total of 69 parcels totaling approximately 83 acres in size. The island is 100% surrounded by City of Chico's jurisdiction. It's generally located between East 8th Street and Highway 32, west of Bruce Road and east of Forest Avenue. The area is, like I mentioned, third on the list and is proposed for recordation in 2025. The city of Chico has pre-zoned the area RS20, so rural suburban 20,000 square foot minimum lot size. And allowed land uses in this area does include large and small animal keeping, crop production, and community gardens. So as part of this annexation, the area would be detached from CSA 164, which is Butte County Animal Control, and the Butte Resource Conservation District. The area is not served by the City of Chico's sewer system at this time, so parcels would continue to be on septic systems and well for their water service or Cal water if that's available. For this particular project, we did receive public comment. We did get several comments or phone calls to our office with questions regarding the status of private roads in the area, tax information, and then of course some land use information. You did receive, or you should have received, emails with public comment earlier this week. And then I did receive a letter this morning from a resident regarding some land uses in the area, as well as the status of the private roads. His concern was that the private roads would be dedicated as public right of way upon annexation, but I did confirm with City Chico staff that they had no interest in taking on any public drives or private drives. I'm sorry, private driveways or private streets in the area. And then resident John Schaller called and asked that his opposition be verbally communicated to you at the meeting this morning. If you have any further questions regarding any of those comments, I'm happy to engage. But today staff is recommending that the commission adopt resolution 05-2223, annexing 69 parcels and adjacent road right-of-way into the city of Chico, finding that no further environmental review is necessary as the project is consistent with the city of Chico's general plan. The annexation does conform to the criteria for island annexation, and protest proceedings can be waived pursuant to Government Code 56375.3. So if you have any questions, I am happy to answer.
Questions or comments by board members?
Can you elaborate on the nature of the statements opposing this project?
We
did they give
received.
Any
there's a-
specificity of any?
Sure, there were specifically, Mr. Panic's concerns were regarding the he lives on a private drive. And so I engaged with City Chico Public Works staff confirming that they would not be interested in taking those private drives on as public right of way. Most of the streets in the area do not conform to City of Chico road standards, and the city is just not interested in taking on roads that don't meet their standards to maintain, especially when it comes to driveways that serve as private drives or lanes in the area. So anything that's currently a public road, which would be Almani, and then I think there are two other public roads in the neighborhood, those would be taken on by the city of Chico for maintenance. Other concerns were regarding animal keeping in the area. There are a lot of horses in the area as it has direct access to Bidwell Park's horse trails. City of Chico animal keeping standards do allow for what they refer to as hooved animals. So goats, horses, things like that are allowed in the RS zoning district. And so they would be able to continue to keep those animals in the area. Those were the two kind of main points of concern for the area.
Thank you.
Shannon, real quick, two quick questions. Number one, did you say this area is served by Cal Water?
I'd have to look.
Not that it's a big issue, I just was curious.
It's okay.
It's not,
let's
it's not
see.
served by the sewer, I know, but it's,
It's a combination. The area is served by a combination of Cal Water and on-site wells. So
but Cal Water, it's probably available to everybody in this area.
yes.
Okay. And then secondly, this is kind of, we're just doing this because we have to, that we have no choice in this matter, right? This is an island, and by state law, these islands need to be annexed into the cities. That's correct.
The area does conform to
Okay.
all of the standards of an island annexation in its size when it came into existence. And so essentially, yes.
Yeah. So is there anything that we can do to, I mean, what powers do we have to change any of this at all? I mean, really nothing, right?
We don't have authority over land use in the area.
Hmm.
So there's not much we can do going back to the city, and no.
This is kind of a formality, basically is what I'm saying, correct?
This was part of the state law that was enacted in 2000 and that requires us, not optional, it requires us, if we receive it under this pursuant to this code section, we have no choice but to approve it, is unless we can make alternative findings for the 5 factors, all of which in this case apply. Your only leeway is if you had any questions, we might be able to, as Shannon indicated, attempt to answer those with the city, but you as a commission, if you meet those 5 standards that are fairly objective, then you have to approve it.
Any other questions by commissioners? I'm going to open public comment. I do have a card from Ray Testman. Ray here, would like to speak. Morning, Ray. You got to turn your microphone, that button right
Press it
there.
down.
There, you're good, yeah.
Okay. for or against. My problem is the problems the city has caused and the county has caused where I live and my city neighbors. That I live right on Dead Horse Slough, right on El Monte. History of this place is the county decided to put a bridge over Dead Horse Slough, redirected Dead Horse Slough to come straight down. They still own that part of it. Right next from El Monte halfway over to Bruce. The 93 flood, the Dead Horse Slough decided it wanted to go back where it originated. So it went back over to Dorado Serra where the county had allowed a subdivision to be built and went right down the road, which was the old Dead Horse Slough Road, and jumped the road and went, crossed over to Forest Avenue and Forest Circle. Besides doing that, and the county, I've lived there over 30 years, the county has come one time to keep their portion of it clean. So they haven't upheld their part of redirecting the Dead Horse Slough to choke it down. The city and the county together, when they put in Highway 32, they said, we don't like Dead Horse Slough going down the middle of where we're going to put a road. So we're going to change the direction 90 degrees and shoot it over to Little Chico Creek. And because this is such a benefit to the county and to the city, we're going to keep this portion of it from basically where 32 and Forest are now, that bridge. We're going to keep that clear all the way down to Boucher and Humboldt, where Dead Horse Slough used to come in. So there won't be any problem with flooding. The city has refused to do it, say they're not responsible for it. They filed a paper, say that they were going to do it, but they don't do it. All they have done since they diverted it is built Forest Creek Circle subdivision, the Marsh School, the apartment buildings they're building, California Park. This is all impervious land now. The lake is impervious because there's not any water going there. As soon as it hits it, it's down there where it's slough. So when there's a big rain, the slough fills up. If Little Chico Creek isn't clean, it's backed up going slow. So the water floods that whole area. Not because it normally flood. It used to flood on Highway 32. That was its floodplain. But the city has consistently taken away the floodplain that protects people on El Monte, not all of El Monte, just the north part of El Monte, from the floodplains. I mean, the Husa project used to flood all the way over to La Quinta, but it doesn't go over to La Quinta anymore because they built a subdivision, built a bank up there. So it's another place that the water can't go. They just keep building places where the water cannot go. So it has to go in Dead Horse Slough all at the same time. So when it rains in Butte Meadows, 24 hours it rains here, it floods. Hadn't happened in 15 years, but in 1993 and subsequent years about that time, we used to get a lot of flooding and near flooding. Because I live right on the slough, I still live fear when we have a heavy rain, go out and look at the bridge and see how high the water is. And, the county and the city are not upholding their agreements to abate this problem. I mean, my opinion, they should be clearing Chico Creek out of town, but they just let it grow up and the flood just keeps backing up. And their solution is to put more water into it, more impervious properties around it.
Okay, so I have a question of staff. Does the county retain ownership of some land there that we're aware of, an easement or land that we actually own?
I'm not aware of, this is a map of the area. I don't know the specifics of ownership of the parcels, and Caltrans is also in the mix because they obviously own the right of way for Highway 32. this area is in a drainage district that's maintained by by the county Mud Creek Drainage District. And so there is a CSA out there that should be responsible for maintaining some of
So
the flooding in the area.
That part of it, the county can address. The rest, the city would have to address. And I think one of the major problems with maintaining any stream and Chico Creek or any stream is Fish and Wildlife will not allow you to enter them anymore and modify them, and except in extreme emergency, like a declared emergency, then we can enter the stream and do clearing and so forth. And they very rarely will issue a permit to clean it. But I think we heard you loud and clear here. That's with the county hat on. We can address that at a county level and ask our development service or public works department what's going on and what they require to assist you with this issue. And then we can reach out to the city side and
That's
ask
not
them
our
to do it.
problem with the flooding. The city keeps adding to it.
Well, that's
Now,
the
now
city.
we're gonna be in the city, they're gonna put subdivisions all along El Monte and both sides of it and
That we don't have any power over that, or can we direct them not to build or do anything? We simply, this is an island annexation. And if it's under, how many acres is it now?
150.
150? If it's under 150 acres, we as a commission are forced to proceed with the annexation.
I'm not opposed to the annexation. I'm opposed to the just adding on to the and not doing anything about the problem that they're causing.
Well, I would certainly vote and be active in city politics. I mean, that's where it's at.
Chair Connolly,
Yes, sir.
if it's the commission's desire, we could certainly provide a letter to the County Public Works Department to highlight this issue. So we could make a formal letter.
All right,
Request.
we'll do that. We'll write a letter. I mean, it's
Well,
government work, you know.
Yeah, I'd like somebody to look at it, at least be on record that the problem's getting bigger and bigger each year.
Well,
And we haven't had any problems because it hasn't rained,
Well, thank you for your,
but it might rain again.
yeah, well, thank you for your input. Let's move on.
And
here.
we will look
Because
into,
I wanna have it in my
the
living
dead horse slough issue.
Say again?
We will look into that dead horse slough issue and try to make that as clean as we can legally do.
Okay, so Ray, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item 3.1? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion on this item then.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, call the roll. It says so right on there. You have. to call the
Commissioner
roll.
Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Yes.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner McGrehan,
Yes,
Commissioner Sharman,
Yes.
Commissioner Betts,
Aye.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that passes unanimously. All right, 3.2 is the city of Gridley / West Biggs Gridley Road annexation number 3. If you'd have told me 10, 15 years ago this was going to happen, I'd have been really surprised.
All right,
Has it
thank you.
changed?
So this is an annexation proposed by the city of Gridley. The original annexation came to us for a single parcel located on the northerly boundary of the city of Gridley, approximately 42 acres in size and owned by the Bernards. The annexation would support development of the site with a 202 lot single family subdivision, similar in nature to the Heron Landing subdivision located directly south of this parcel. Modifications of this proposal are recommended by staff and include that the 8 parcels surrounded by I can get this up on the screen. The 8 parcels surrounded by the annexation territory be added to this proposal. And in response to that communication to the city of Gridley, they did go back and pre-zone those parcels where they were not pre-zoned before. So those parcels can be added to the proposal. And we also recommend that the full length of West Biggs Gridley Road be added to the proposal, which just creates continuity in maintenance over the road. The territory is located at the edge of the city of Gridley's sphere of influence, and across from West Biggs Gridley Road are active agricultural uses. The Gridley General Plan and the Butte County General Plan recommend or identify that a 300-foot ag buffer or setback be required for residential uses that are adjacent to active ag uses. So after some conversation with the ag commissioner and the city of Gridley staff, we are recommending that a 300-foot buffer be added as a condition of approval to this annexation. So it would essentially say that a 300-foot buffer would be located along the east side of West Biggs Gridley Road, and that no residential uses could be developed there until such time that the ag use is changed over or changed in the Butte County General Plan, essentially. The ag commissioner and the county of Butte both supported the recommendation of this condition of approval. So we have received some public comment for this project in the form of emails and phone calls. The general thought behind these comments had to do with the process that the city of Gridley followed regarding their planning commission meeting and their city council meetings, that the process that they had was not transparent, and that citizens didn't feel that their thoughts were heard. But today, staff is recommending that the commission adopt Resolution 04-2223, adopting the mitigated negative declaration prepared by the city of Gridley and finding that no further environmental review is necessary. Annexing 9 parcels total to the city of Gridley, which is the amended proposal, and waive protest proceedings if no written objections from affected landowners are received today at this meeting.
A question for staff. Did we look over their proceedings and see that they were within compliance with state law?
They did follow Brown Act requirements and that the meetings were noticed and agendas were posted on their website. I don't know every detail and intricacy of that process, but as far as I can see, they did follow Brown Act requirements.
Mr. Lucas?
Just additionally, for purposes of LAFCo, we received this application legitimately with the proper resolution, proper fees, and the proper application. We properly noticed this process through here. So while I'm not going to discount whether or not there was something done right or wrong, perceived or not by the city, today's action for us has been adequately and correctly posted, processed, and is in front of you for a decision. I'm not saying you can't comment on the other, but those are 2 completely unrelated issues.
Thank you for the clarification. Questions or comments by board members?
Yes, Mr. Chair, staff, I don't know if you pointed out or not, but the additional condition that's being recommended as part of the approval of the annexation relative to a 300-foot buffer. I didn't hear you say this, but looking at the resolution, apparently that is consistent with the city of Gridley's general plan's policies, does it not? So upon annexation, Gridley would accept that and abide by that 300-foot setback.
Yeah, so this particular annexation is bound by that condition.
Okay.
And we are asking that a note be reflected on the final map for the subdivision that indicates a 300-foot buffer, and that any further or additional development of the parcels also include a 300-foot buffer.
That's also a county policy where
Yes.
it's zoned ag adjacent. The county requires a 300-foot setback.
Thank you both.
So Shannon, can you put that map up again
Yeah.
that shows, okay, then with your arrow, show me exactly where that 300-foot set, and show everyone where that 300-foot setback would be.
So this line, West Biggs Gridley Road, is the edge of the city of Gridley's sphere of influence. And so anything in this area is within their sphere and identified for development in the future at some point in time, although not, obviously not everything is proposed today. These parcels over here are within the county of Butte's jurisdiction outside of the city sphere of influence and zoned ag 40. So the only allowed uses on these parcels are ag-related uses. So the 300-foot buffer would apply to anything within 300 foot of an ag zoning district. So for this particular annexation, anything essentially along this line within 300 feet cannot be developed with residential uses. So for this particular subdivision, it will affect, let's say, these parcels here
Yeah,
would
so,
not be able
yeah,
to.
I'm glad you
develop.
brought up that map because that map is a little bit misleading.
Sure.
And I know you just put it in there because that's why you have it. That's the map you have. But essentially 300 foot would go from the western side of the road
Yes,
into the property.
yes. And
Okay, and the road is probably 60 feet long.
60 or 80.
60 feet wide. And
Yes.
so the remaining 240 would be on the side of the property owners there.
Yes, and there would be a note on the final map that could perhaps say lots 130 through whatever cannot be developed. It'll be written and delineated on the map.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you very much.
Got one question regarding the letter from Patrick Coughlin, and I apologize if I
Mhm.
if I mispronounced it. Number one, of his objection on his letter, he stated a fair and impartial public hearing on the revised plan for the entire 57-acre area annexation has been denied to the residents, landowners, and registered voters of the city of Gridley. So he's referring to the addition of the 8 parcels that LAFCo has added to the annexation.
So
So
there,
that's allowed by state law.
there were two public hearings held. So the first one was to pre-zone. The city of Gridley adopted a slew of resolutions and ordinances approving development of the larger site, including a pre-zone and annexation to LAFCO to annex. And then after some conversation was had between myself and the city of Gridley, we indicated to them that we would want to include the 8 parcels to avoid creating an island. And so they went back and held another public hearing where they pre-zoned the parcels so that they could be included in today's annexation. And whether or not they talked about it being, I don't know, wasn't at the meeting. I don't know the details of the meeting, but
So I think that what he's questioning is the fact that because LAFCO wanted these 8 additional parcels to be added, it didn't need to go back, or he's suggesting it needs to go back to the city to adopt a new resolution, hold a new public hearing on all the parcels, but that's not allowed. That's not required by state law.
no, this commission has authority to amend an annexation proposal and to include any parcels that have been basically noticed that they would be included in the annexation. And we have done that. We've notified, we reached out to each of these landowners and let them know that we were thinking about including them in the annexation. And then we noticed them again for this public hearing, telling them that they were included in the annexation. And the city of Gridley, when they held their meeting, noticed them to let them know that they would be pre-zoned. We had intended, if these parcels had not been pre-zoned proactively by the city of Gridley, I would have recommended a condition of approval that they went back to the city of Gridley council and had been pre-zoned so that we could then annex them in the future.
No. I have a question,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in looking at the 300-foot line that you pointed out, that's already, it looks like it's around 15 lots off of this subdivision. Does that
Yes.
include the roadways as well? They cannot be developed? Set it back and probably cost them another 10 lots.
The general plan of the county of Butte and the city of Gridley says that no residential uses could be
Residential.
there. So they could, if they wanted to get creative, even include some commercial uses there, but that's not the intentions of the,
But they could
landowner.
develop the road so they
Absolutely.
could have access.
absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, is there existing houses on some of the parcels that are being annexed?
The entire, the bigger lot is empty. These 8 parcels are owned by, I think, 5 different landowners, and some of them do have homes. These are all zoned Ag 40, so primary uses in the county of Butte are ag uses. And so some of them do have homes, some of them are empty with some sort of some smaller ag
So
uses.
they're grandfathered in
Yes,
unless they buy them up or whatever.
yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody knew that we weren't going to tear any homes down or take their chickens away or anything.
Right, and they're also within the 300-foot buffer anyway, and so further residential uses could not be developed on those parcels.
Okay,
Could you educate me as one member of this commission on the pre-zoning process that was done by the city? Does the pre-zoning, once it's approved by the city, immediately go into effect, or does it have like a typical zoning ordinance practice, a time period whereby it legally is in effect?
It's sort of a placeholder.
Yeah.
Some jurisdictions, the city of Chico has all areas within their sphere of influence pre-zoned.
Hmm.
So upon annexation, they go immediately from the city of Chico zoning, or I'm sorry, the county of Butte zoning, and they're already identified for what their zoning would be. The city of Gridley has not pre-zoned all the areas within their sphere of influence.
Right.
We are not allowed to annex parcels that are not pre-zoned.
I
And
understand that,
so-
and that follows with my next question.
Yeah.
Is it our commission staff's regular operational habit that you will not accept an application for annexation until there's evidence that the subject area is pre-zoned by the?
Correct. It is a
Okay.
requirement of an
So
application
that's
that
part of
the
the
parcels
application
be
itself. You
pre-zoned.
have to have that evidence. It has to be
Yes.
legally in effect before you'll accept and process the application?
Yes.
Okay.
So
thank you.
the city of Gridley did it as one action. They
Right.
approved the subdivision, they had pre-zoned it, they made an application to LAFCo, all in one action.
Okay. Thank you.
One more question. Item C of option 1 for approval of the project. You're asking that the commission waive protest hearing, basically, if there are no objections received, and you've provided actually C1 and a C2. So if we received written comments today regarding protesting the annexation, you have to hold the protest hearing. So that leads is if there's sufficient protest, that could kill the whole project, the
Yes,
whole annexation. Okay.
the only folks that are allowed to, you can only protest the annexation if you are an affected landowner. I am not aware that we have heard from any landowners in this annexation territory objecting to the annexation.
Thank you.
One more, Mr. Chairman, one more quick question. It's a canal to the north, correct? And that is a drainage canal? Is
Yes,
that
it's owned by
830 Is that
RD833.
Drainage District 833?
Yes.
Is that correct? Have we heard anything from them in regards to this annexation and proposed subdivision?
We did reach out to them for comment, but did not receive comment back from RD833. The city of Gridley has conditions in place that say that improvement plans for subdivisions have to go to RD833 for their approval prior to them signing off on any improvement plans.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else there? I'm gonna open public comment. Public comment will be 3 minutes. And the first card I have here is Pat Coughlin. Can we accommodate him? Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I had requested an extension of time as an ADA accommodation because of my health. Your LAFCo resolution says this proposal is an annexation of 57 acres. And put simply, they've never, ever had a hearing on an annexation of 57 acres. We had one of 42 acres. It was problematic. We had lots of comments, which others will talk about, of the hundreds of people who have had concerns about this. Apparently you would never, that was never communicated to you. As you can see, this is the 42 acre proposal. It's hatched in this entire project extended to the road. Over the institutional properties. And that's how it's presented to us as that part. But whenever we said, well, the general plan calls for a road, they said, well, we can't put it in because these property owners won't let us. And we said, well, it's not safe because you got too much traffic pouring down Vermont Street. So well, we still got to put in the road because these properties won't allow it. But whenever they want to show a consistent project, all the properties are in. So it's this case that essentially that's how it went. When they needed the islanders were in, it was in their favor. Of course, when the islands could be used to avoid cost or responsibility, their independence was used to preclude discussion. I agree with what the LAFCo is saying. Essentially, the road needs to be a part of the project. All that property needs to be part of the project. But we've never had any opportunity to discuss when's the road going in, what will it look like, will it accommodate deceleration lanes? What are you going to do about the trapped section of high density, medium density residential up in the northwest corner now, and the fact that having it by cutting out the high half of the high density, will that ever be developed? And if not, it's now really undevelopable in my judgment. Where's it going to be kept? We've never been allowed to discuss that. That's always been taken off the agenda because, well, that's not part of this project. What I see is part of this project is it's supported by things like a traffic study, which to say that we really didn't have any problems, it didn't affect anybody. And that traffic study was done in the middle of a pandemic with everybody, all the kids at home, studying, big chunks of the population unemployed or working from home. And it's totally not representative of what the traffic issue is. Secondly, it doesn't include the future growth of this, another 200, 300, 400 EDUs up in that trap pocket in future growth. It doesn't include these properties in the interstitial properties. Plus, essentially, the paperwork there says you want to put a wall on the road, which is great. Knock a hole in it for another access. Okay, you want to put the road on there, the wall up there, that pushes all that traffic inward now, not outward. So the traffic study is bogus. And while it may say, well, it shows this or that, whatever it shows is really incorrect. And it is contrary to other studies that have been done. So we're looking at the fact that essentially a lot of the stuff here to support the 42 acres is being used to now justify 57 acres. And the whole thing has changed. And we really have been denied a bite of this apple as members of the community. Who's going to pay for the road? What's it going to look like? Will it service high density, medium density in that back corner? Where's the bus stops? Where are they going to go? Pay for high density. None of that's been discussed. We've been denied that opportunity. Now you're talking about this buffer zone. I'm looking at a map with all these houses on it. And from what you're saying now, big chunks of this housing are going to disappear. Okay. I'm not, we've not been told this. We've had no opportunity to present it. If you look at, say, the second hearing, please look at the title that was put in the public notice in the newspaper. It just says pre-zone and a bunch of APNs. It doesn't say LAFCO, file 2210. It doesn't say the Bernard project. It doesn't say the Chandler Park. Gave no notice of that. I was the only one to show up. That's how vague and lacking in transparency the public hearing was. So what I'm saying is this, is please don't be a party to denying us our right to have our say. Who probably won't prevail. You know, in many ways, this could be a good project. I'd like to support this project. I've supported Aaron Land and Eagle Meadows, all the developments that have been safe and have paid their way. This one smacks of one that does not want to pay its way in terms of the highway improvements, wants to leave me, the Gridley citizen, to pick up that. Now I want to know about that. It leaves me with a nightmare as far as, and the residents as far as Vermont Street. Now, if the sections of Vermont Street where the road is narrow was habitat for snail darters or spotted owls, historic precedent suggests you would be not allowed to destroy the habitat and endanger their young. Please do not give the human residents of that Gridley neighborhood any less consideration by accepting an out-of-date and inapplicable traffic study.
All right, could you wrap it up, please? You're well over your time limit.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank
Okay, we have a card here from Mike. I'm gonna mess your name up. Trainer?
Trainer.
I get it. Okay. All right. Good morning, Mike. You can push your button right there. There you go. They turned it on for you. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Ah,
Is
you
that,
gotta
is that
check-
good? Volume?
You're good to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me begin by reading an email that I sent to Ms. Costa and Mr. Lucas. And sent that last night because this whole situation just came to my attention over the last 4 or 5 days. I've been involved and I've been to city council meetings in Gridley, 2 or 3 of them over the last year and a half regarding the Chandler Park Bernard annexation and development. So I'll read this email that I sent and I'll explain my purpose here. Hello, my name is Mike Trainer. I'm a Gridley homeowner in Heron Landing. It has been brought to my attention that a hearing on October 3rd in Gridley on a 15-acre annexation adjacent to the proposed 42-acre Chandler Park development was lacking in transparency and impartiality. Comments made at the Gridley hearing for the purposes of submission to LAFCo were not transmitted to LAFCo or included in file 22-10. These comments would have had a significant impact on the Chandler Park Bernard project annexation. These comments include, but are not limited to, the safety concerns of using Vermont Street and Heron Landing and further to the south as an entrance egress thoroughfare to Chandler Park, and to the development and upgrading of the West Biggs Gridley Road on the western side of Chandler Park, a measure which is also necessary to alleviate safety concerns. Furthermore, the notice for the Gridley hearing was both misleading and late. The Gridley Planning Commission was bypassed and the limited public comments at the hearing were not submitted to LAFCO as requested. Therefore, I'm asking the LAFCO board to temporarily postpone their hearing on agenda item 3.2 until the entire project is renoticed in Gridley for a public hearing at a time and a venue that will allow for fuller resident citizen involvement. Thank you for consideration in this matter. Okay, and then I just have one other thing here too. Of major concern to me is the safety issue regarding use of Vermont Street. And I have copies here I'd like to present to every member of the board.
Give it to the clerk over there, please. Hey,
Up there. And I'll read this right now for everybody here. I collected 244 signatures going door to door, knocking on residents who would be affected by the use of Vermont Street as the entrance egress to Chandler Park. And it would affect not just Vermont Street, but also Indiana and Ohio Street, and probably possibly even Virginia Street and Kentucky Street. What I presented to each resident as I went to their doors, I show them this statement that I'll read, and then they agreed, and then they signed. And I'd say 95% of the residents I spoke to, 95, 98% did read this, and they were in agreement with it, and they did sign. And I've got the signatures here to prove it. We, the undersigned, believe that access to Chandler Park should be limited to West Biggs Gridley Road only. The use of Vermont and Nevada streets as an entrance and egress thoroughfare is unacceptable for the following reasons. In addition to the invasive noise and incursion on the privacy of the current residents, there is also the concern for the safety of pedestrians, of people walking their dogs, of bicyclers, and of children on skateboards, and those playing basketball at the mobile basketball stands. Residents in Ohio and Indiana streets would also be negatively affected in a similar manner by the additional traffic flow. Furthermore, on Vermont Street from Spruce Street north to Heron Landing, several houses have neither driveways nor garages, which necessitates vehicular parking on both sides of the street. Also, several of the houses there do not have sidewalks. This requires pedestrians currently to walk out into the street and around the parked vehicles, putting them in close proximity to the vehicular traffic. This is especially dangerous in the narrower sections of Vermont Street, thus compounding the safety hazards that already exist there. Naturally, the above-mentioned traffic and parking congestion would negatively impact your property values. We urge the city council and city authorities to seriously consider these concerns by limiting access to Chandler Park from West Biggs Gridley Road only. And as I went through the houses and got these signatures, people also added their own comments saying that they would like to see speed bumps along Indiana, Ohio, and Vermont Street, especially in the area south of Heron Landing Park all the way to Spruce. The traffic there should be limited to 15, 20 miles an hour because of the residential area, with kids playing out in
We
the
at
streets,
LAFCO,
traffic or.
we can't condition anything.
Yeah, but
like
I
that.
just letting you know,
Can
what's
take
been
that
going
to
on
the
up there.
city.
And they'd also like to see more
You can.
response from the Gridley City Council on some of these matters. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you for being so polite in your comments. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on this item? Please come up. If you would, if you care, would you please identify yourself?
And do I tell my address or anything?
No, just.
Good. I'm Robert Miller. You know where I live. You did my roof. Sorry.
It's not leaking either. Not leaking.
And he did my satellite. Okay, y'all know where I live.
He put the leak in my roof. All
And he's been in my house. No.
right, all right.
Okay,
What do you got?
sorry. Okay, I lived there most of my life. I'm a third generation resident at my home. I live on the West Biggs Gridley Road. And with Heron Landing now with Chandler Park, I'm just worried we're gonna have more, it's gonna be more compact traffic. Back in 2017, when we had the Oroville Dam crisis, when we had to evacuate Gridley and Biggs and the, south of the Oroville Dam, it was just solid traffic northbound because Heron Landing, no offense, there was no, that's the only way if there's emergencies for both Chandler Park and Heron Landing is the West Biggs Gridley Road. And that West Biggs Gridley Road cannot handle all that traffic. They need, and they promised, I got a maps here when I was in high school. They promised alternate roads years ago when we had probably, this was during probably the 70s. They were talking about putting in roads connecting West Biggs Gridley Road to the highway, which it never happened because we didn't have a local Biggs Gridley supervisor because we had our supervisors until Todd, they only cared about their own neighborhoods. They took care of their own backyards. They took care of, and Gridley and Biggs was like, you guys are left out. So it's like, and plus with the county and the city, I think it's changed now with Todd, thank God. It used to be with the city and the county, we like, what mine is mine, what yours is yours. It's like, okay, if it's a city, county, it's like that. That's how they handled it. And so, like for me, I've lived there and I just seen how the road is not in good shape right now. It was done in 2015, which now the road needs to be redone because it's really bad. And the county, what happened was the county was hoping that, oh, good, maybe the city of Biggs and city of Gridley will annex it. We don't worry about it anymore. And I guess that was their plan for many years, was hope the cities will annex the road and we don't have to worry about it. And so I got a map. I could maybe after the meeting or whatever, I got a map showing I was in high school. They were talking about putting roads in. Ord Ranch Road is now going through. The future plan was to have it go over the tracks and right to right now, just right above Chandler Park, because that was supposed to been put there years ago. Never happened. Hastings was supposed to go over the tracks, and Four Corner with Ferris Road never happened. But now for me, the West Gridley Road now is just where if I want to go to the highway, I have to go through Biggs, or I have to drive through Gridley to get to the highway. And when there's a wreck, because I live on a curve and there's another curve and there's a wreck, you're stuck on the road if there's, because they kind of close it off and maybe they have to remove a pole or whatever, or remove the car or move the person off the road. And so they have to, I mean, Whisper Gridley Road, I mean, it's just like one single road to, and there's no other alternate roads on Whisper Gridley Road. I mean, even with the Chandler Park, that's gonna be more and more, and there's no emergency access roads. Because Whisper Gridley Road is it. Because there's no, because you can't drive through Heron Landing, because I mean, Heron Landing people are trying to get out, or there was an emergency. And and of course you can't put any more crossings because Union Pacific won't allow you putting more crossings over the tracks, it'd be overpasses. And I know overpasses are just expensive, very expensive. And I don't think the city of Gridley or Butte County will afford to put in more overpasses over the tracks. And so I just leave it as this. They talk about these, I like to see what's going to happen in a few years. I'm still gonna be around. And since I'm a third generation, I'm probably going to see probably more. I hope the city won't do anything crazy, and all of a sudden where I can't leave my own driveway. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other public comment on this matter? Close public comment. I will comment, having been around for the last 17, 18 years, that those roads would have been pushed over the railroad tracks if that huge development between Gridley and Biggs would have come to fruition. And there was I don't think there was any plan to do it any other way. So questions or comments by the board, staff, or anybody? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Call the roll.
Commissioners, I just want to clarify that you are adopting the recommendation of C1 as is you would be approving option 1 with C1 and waiving protest proceedings today.
That would be my motion, yes.
Thank you.
And that's your second.
Yes.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Yes.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Sharman,
Bill, you on there? You're muted.
Yes.
Commissioner Betts,
Aye.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank the public for your input. It doesn't always go your way, but go talk to the city of Gridley now. Well, I find them to be approachable. Okay, so we're gonna move on. And next thing is, we didn't have anything from the consent agenda. Public comment on any item not on the agenda. If you'd just like to speak to us in general, please come up to the mic and speak. We cannot take action because it was not agendized. That's a public comment. I'll close public comment. We'll bring it back. Executive officers report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item first is under administration, deals with our contractual services agreement with the County of Butte. With the update on that is I'm appreciative of Supervisor Connolly, Chair Connolly, wearing both hats, helping. And we met with the administrator of the county and we talked through this, and I think we came up with a solution that will rescind their letter. And we will work with the county on adapting some sort of a process through Workday that makes more economic sense to us. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Chairman.
Well, it's just really what's going on is the software isn't adequate to understand the relationship between LAFCo and the county. We're closely attached kind of at the hip. And so the software treats us like an outside entity where everything has to be entered manually. And so that creates a whole lot more work for the county, and they feel that they should charge us that so much more work. But really, in my mind, the resolution is we either have to change the software, which they say they will do. Of course, I don't know how many millions we gave them, and they say they'll do everything, and then they're slow to respond. But and then beyond that, the only other option, because it's too expensive, we'd have to figure out a LAFCO how to do all these things ourselves. I think we're trying to push for an improvement in the relationship with the software provider and a fix. That's logically what we should do. We'll see. How is that?
Perfect. Not on your item under administration, but something that I just came aware of a couple of days ago is you all might know that the governor has indicated he's going to release the emergency proclamation on February 28th of 2023. So all the emergency orders that are tied back to that will go away, up to and including all the Brown Act provisions that allowed us to do remote proceedings. So nothing for you to do right today, but come our March meeting, there will probably be a different construct for how we have to do these under the Brown Act. And we don't know what that is exactly today, but just giving you a heads up. It's going to affect every agency, not just ours, obviously. Getting down into the project general notes, this first item, I'm just tickled to tell you that when Mr. Mayor left, I'm sorry to hear that, see that, but the El Modelo Fire Protection District has submitted their application for dissolution, and we are currently processing it. And without getting in any of the details right now, we expect that to be on your December calendar for a hearing and action. So you've been hearing this from me for a while, and it's finally come to fruition. It took a lot of work. Town of Paradise sewer line. That process is moving forward. The town is going to be holding a hearing on November 7th, next week, next Monday, to adopt or consider adoption of the EIR for that project. Your staff will attend that meeting just to follow that process, and I expect they will do so. But that's just a heads up for all of you. What that means for us is eventually we will have to look at that extension of services contract for which this is going to allow for that application to be made. So there's still some processing left to go. We probably won't see this until after the first of the year for certain. But anyhow, it's moving forward.
So Steve, if I may,
Yes, sir.
you're sharing with us today that your understanding is the town council will have an agenda item on this subject November 7th, which is just a handful of days away. So potentially there's a staff report already generated by the town staff for the town council. I would encourage you on our behalf, just look at the nature of the proposed final EIR in terms of comments received on the draft and responses to those comments, particularly as relates to the extension of our services of the town that involves us, and just see what the nature of that finalization of that document looks like, because I got a feeling we may or may not have to be inheriting use of that EIR if and when we're asked to process any extension action outside the town. And I'm not political on this at all. I just want you to be on top of it for us, because we'll have to be very, very knowledgeable of that if and when we are asked to participate later in the process. I'll look it up too. I'm just curious to see what kind of commentary came in on the draft and how that's being handled in final EIR form, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, we will absolutely do so. Thank you.
Yeah.
Drainage Reclamation District's actions. I'm also really thrilled to report that we did an MSR on reclamation drainage districts. I know for those of you who have not been around as long, you wonder what all these MSRs are done for and all this paper that's produced. Well, the reality is we did that back in 2017. We did a review of all the drainage reclamation districts. We came up with a number of recommendations for how they could be reorganized. One of those was the dissolution of drainage district number 2. We went down, Shannon and I attended their board meeting yesterday where they adopted the resolution to dissolve. They will now be making an application. So the good news is we have removed a layer of government from those folks down there in the agricultural lands, for which really was not providing any real fundamental service. They were actually thrilled that we process this and push them to do it. And I think they're happy that they won't have to meet again moving forward. But anyhow, that application is coming along. But really the point of that is that our MSRs do make a difference. And by putting language in an MSR, Mr. Connolly knows this so too well with our newest legislation, but when we identify those shortcomings in an MSR, that gives us the opportunity to pursue it. So sometimes you might think, why are we reaching so far into the future to say X, Y, or Z about an agency? Well, this is why. Once we put that in an MSR, it gives us the green light to try to act on it. And so this was very favorable. And we actually expect that we'll be doing a few other reorganizations in that area, probably starting in the spring. Won't get into any of those details right now, but that's a huge win, I think, for everybody involved.
When do you anticipate this one in particular coming to commission?
I expect we will get an application probably before the end of the year, if not sooner.
Okay.
We just received the signed resolution today. So it's just a matter of filling out the paperwork now and getting it to us.
Okay. Thank you.
Under Gridley Biggs area of concern, I'll just touch on that real quick. Doesn't say new on there, but we did just have a meeting yesterday at 12 o'clock at the city of Gridley with city staff, county staff, Biggs staff, Gridley staff. Mr. Kimmelshoe was there. When we talked through the process of how that area of concern is likely to develop over time, this is like something that's just in its infancy at discussion level. So I don't want to get anybody riled up about what's going to happen, but it's, as Mr. Kimmelshoe can attest, there's going to be a lot of work involved. The good news on this one is there's been no better time like now between Biggs and Gridley. The relationship, the cooperation between the two cities is at probably an all-time high. I thank Bruce Johnson and Mayor Biggs, Mr. Shepherd. They have really been instrumental. Mr. Kimmelshoe's been instrumental. I think we're going to get somewhere good with this, and it's going to result in development between the two communities with shared services, cooperative arrangements, dealing with drainage, reclamation, a lot of things going on. But this is a positive step forward, I think, for everybody involved. So we're going to keep doing it, tracking it. And now, if you have anything you want to add, Todd.
No, do the best to make. That there's roads, there's drainage, there's parks, there's room for schools, adequate sewer. So we're trying to do this in a way that is prudent and will be in place for many years to come. So we don't expect that area to develop. We expect it to develop over time, but we'd like to do it in a very orderly fashion. And I want to thank Bruce and Bo for showing great leadership in helping putting this together. Thank you.
I'd like to be notified about too.
I don't have anything else on my report under the projects to describe, because there's no new action really, unless there's a question for me on any of those particular projects. I will elaborate if I can, but there's nothing new.
I have a question of curiosity more than anything else. I know about the other commissioners, but we've been seeing this Tuscan Ridge Plan development information constantly on every monthly staff report you have, and the status seems to never change relative to it being an incomplete project application. But what I'm kind of curious to know is, if it was deemed incomplete by the county for processing, why did the county staff, and maybe the two board members can enlighten me on this, why did the county staff proceed with a notice of preparation on EIR on a project that's deemed incomplete? I'll never understand that.
I can't answer that. You find out.
Well, I just, this is a curiosity only. I mean, I can ask Paula, don't worry, guys. And by the way, you've got a good one there. Paula is excellent, and I couldn't. Anyway, I'm just curious. Steve, I'm wondering if you've pondered that thought, because
It's not my district.
I-
No comment.
To answer your question, I have pondered lots of things about the Tuscan Ridge project and its processing to date. And I'm not being critical. It's just there's been, there's been a lot of moving parts. For what I can tell you today is it may very well be complete at this point. It's just tough to figure that out on their track it system. And so I'll reach out and I'll find better answers for you. That's a good question, and it deserves an answer, and I'll find one. If that was it on that item, okay. LAFCo, this is exciting news, and I won't take any of Bill's thunder, but he was approved or elected to be the chair of LAFCO at our conference meeting.
Well deserved.
In that,
They don't appreciate my sense of humor yet, or the way I run the meeting. The meetings are definitely going to be shorter, and we're going to have a joke now and then, because LAFCO is dry. It really is. I even got told, don't tell any more jokes. So I told a joke, and it went really well.
I don't know if some of these.
No, no.
Third. It's an honor, and it does put us in a position, and I can say this, we don't often, and as you know, as supervisors, these statewide organizations don't often have a lot of Northern California or rural county representation. And I think certainly as part of Butte LAFCO's goal, you have always supported me in trying to do everything I can with LAFCO, as has Mr. Connolly. And so this just shows we are a participant, we are a player, and we are recognized at the state level with this organization.
It actually tempers their thoughts and what they go after, because LAFCO is formed to protect ag, and in many parts of the state, there isn't any left. So they have a completely different look, and we have to remind them what we're here, what we're supposed to be doing. But yet we have common problems. I mean, too many water districts, sewer districts, or inadequately served residents and so forth. So we do have commonality that we can use to try to drive the rules and regulations towards this. And one of the biggest ones is if you do a series of MSRs, I think there should be a fundamental change that LAFCO would be the entity that would call to the public for an election, because we could look at it and see at a neutral level, it's inadequately being served, because we should combine these, or we should dissolve these, or do whatever. And right now it takes one of those entities to do it for themselves, and that's almost impossible to obtain. So that's one of my things I want to get started this year. It probably won't happen for 4 or 5 years or longer, but I'd like to have that change in the law. And so that's what I'm going to do as chair.
Other quick items on there, just in probably in order of importance. So we did attend the conference, obviously, and Mr. Connolly and I both participated in the opening general session talking about MSRs, and
We got a lot of compliments on that, by the way.
it was a well received. It was a really great discussion. It was all about MSRs and how this new law will affect MSR creation. So as I had indicated to you earlier, with the dissolution of Drainage District Number 2, that came out of our MSR, and this new law 938 is also going to allow us to do even more with respect to that and initiate these at a lower or higher threshold for petitions. With respect to that, we also received an award for I did for being a part of the working group that shepherded that law through. It was probably the hardest piece of legislation I have ever worked on, and the most complicated and annoying at the same time.
Annoying for
But
sure.
we're here.
Yeah, we got it.
Mr. Connolly and I were also appointed again to the Legislative Committee for LAFCO. And why that's important is a lot of things that get started at the LAFCO organization starts on the Leg Committee in response either to legislation that's being proposed or legislation that we bring forward. It's really kind of the place where we cultivate these ideas. And so having us again, a part of that as voting members is a big win for Northern California as well. Mr. Brown is also on the Leg Committee. I'm sorry, I left him out. He's usually just so quiet and contained when he's on those meetings.
No, there's a different side to Scott Brown.
Sure is.
And
Yeah.
just in a sort of a melancholy note, I just will say that Mr. Leverins, our departed chairman, was honored in the packet of the registration materials as well. Unfortunately, he was a part of several folks who have been longtime LAFCO folks who had passed away this past year, but he was there, and there was a special word of honor for him and the others at the conference as well. And the sphere is on our website, as well as you can just hit that link on there and read the sphere. I didn't provide it to you. It's a multiple page colored document, but it's if you want it in paper, I can get you a copy. If not, you just hit that link on your agenda or in your staff report and it'll take you to that document. It's really just everything LAFCo is in that document. Are there any questions on any of those things?
I think that you should more clarify what the legislation was about that you got passed and how difficult it was, because you're making an assumption that they know what's going on at LAFCo, and it was, no, you should really.
I know everyone up there is intimately familiar with all these items.
No, you wouldn't. No,
Legislation was SB
it was
938,
tough.
and it
It
was
was tough. Very tough.
carried by Senator Hertzberg, who's one of the heavy hitters, but he's being termed out, unfortunately, but also been a LAFCO supporter over the years. So he was the gentleman we got to carry the legislation. But the legislation basically says is that when right now, as the law is written, and this won't take effect until January 1, but right now LAFCO can initiate, let's say, a dissolution of a district. We can do that, but the protest threshold goes from 25% down to 10%. 100 people, 100 registered voters in your district, you only have to get 10 folks to protest it in order to trigger election, as opposed to the law for every other way it can be initiated is at a 25% threshold, 25 out of 100 voters, let's say. So this really put LAFCO at a disadvantage because, as you know, from everything you've heard over the years, is it doesn't take very many people. A handful of folks can come out and be rabidly opposed to something, whether it's right or wrong. But if they're, but 10% is a pretty low threshold, and that's enough to sometimes just stop the process. Most LAFCOs won't even continue on the expense of trying to dissolve a district, because if it goes to an election, it could fail, maybe likely would fail, in which case you've wasted all of those revenues, resources, and time to get to that point. So this just really makes it clear that LAFCOs have a role to play, that we can initiate, that it should be at the same level. And we had in exchange give up a few things that we were required to do. For instance, and this is really pretty simple, is if we want to dissolve a special district, and I can do a special item on this in the future if you like, but what we would want to do is say to everybody that's out there is, we want to participate with your district and help improve you. That's always our goal. The MSR establishes that goal. If we move forward with a dissolution, the change in this law does to get us to 25 is we have to basically give those districts a year to make corrections to what they're doing. I think it's a completely appropriate course of action. We got a lot of pushback over time from special districts. Nobody, especially a governmental entity, likes somebody else who oversees them telling them what to do. So it's not surprising that their district association was very originally not so favorable to this. But the reality is, this is about transparency. We put this information out in the MSRs. We say what is right or wrong about the district, and we give them opportunities to make corrections. We don't ever, this commission hasn't ever initiated a dissolution on its own. We have always gotten there in a more cooperative way, but a lot of commissions don't have that luxury. They have districts that just absolutely will not come along, and they have to take action. So this really just gives LAFCO the ability to do that. But it also gives the districts plenty of time and a process by which they can make any corrections and bring those forward to LAFCO. And after that year, if those corrections are made, then that whole issue is tabled, essentially. If they're not made, then there's a series of steps through public hearings that LAFCO can then take to initiate the dissolution. So there's safeguards, if you will, guardrails on the process for LAFCO. But it's definitely a win and I don't know how much we would end up using that, but there are LAFCOs around the state that have much more complicated and or adversarial relationships with their districts, to the point of just screaming and shouting types of adversarial relationships. We've managed to avoid that for a large part. So anyhow, it's a good thing. And I don't know if that's enough. Anybody has questions about it, but that's really what the gist of it is.
I've got a quick question. I don't mean to extend this meeting any longer than it is, but that's okay. What MSRs or municipal service reviews are we doing in at Butte LAFCO right now?
Right
Is there
now in
anything-
progress?
Yeah. Anything going on?
Lots.
Okay.
We are really close to the end. We have a complete administrative draft of the sewer service, water service MSR for the city of the Oroville region.
Okay.
That includes South Feather, Lopud, Thermalito, and the city of Oroville, and SCORE, the treatment plant. That's in process. It's complete at the administrative level now. It's up for us to evaluate that and then put it out as a public review draft. We also have in the works the city of Oroville's MSR. We are at the same spot basically with that. We have an administrative draft. A few more questions we want to work out with the city, but we expect that will come forward in a public draft within the next, probably before the end of the year, in fact. We are working on right now initial agreement with Paradise Irrigation District to update their MSR. We have not started that, but they have selected a consultant that we've agreed with, and we have a letter agreement with them to proceed. So that'll unfold over the next, say, 4 to 6 months. On that one, a little side note is remember I spent a lot of time talking about the options study that PID had done. That option study is loaded full of really good information. So this MSR is timely in that this option study finally got completed. Now we have this source of data and options that the MSR can build on, which is why we waited to do PIDs for some time. And you often get comments, maybe I get them, is why are we not doing X, Y, or Z with an agency? It's really never as simple. And this comes back to the MSR's session that Bill and I participated in, is everyone's different. Every situation is unique. We would have liked to move on the town of Paradise in terms of doing an MSR and an SOI update. But then the campfire hit, and now they have a general plan that's out of date. For us to do a document now on the town would just simply be a waste of money, in my opinion. That's why we're talking with about the necessity, but we're not there yet with them. And so to do it just arbitrarily because some magic deadline came along, there's no point in that.
Yeah, we had big discussions because if we have a really small, well-run district, maybe a drainage district, we don't want to do an MSR automatically every 5 years. We may push that out because they're fine. But if you're from, was a guy from Orange County, he was like, oh no, we need to do it no matter what, every 5 years. And we're, no, there's a different look here. You're putting a burden on a well-run small district that has no issues or problems that shouldn't exist. So we did win that debate.
Well, does the government, I don't know if it's government code or whatever that LAFCO's operate under, but that requires the MSR. Does the language specifically say that they're supposed to be updated every 5th year? I don't think.
It's the specific language is every 5 years as necessary.
Okay, that's the key.
And that's what he
That's-
said.
that's-
Is as necessary.
That's what.
And that would be a real burden to somebody that's.
Totally understand. And don't get me wrong, I don't. The as necessary is open to interpretation. That's the problem, I think, and that needs to be maybe refined a little bit more, but congratulations on what you did.
To this committee. Because that's a hard.
I know where you're going with this. I understand it, believe me, but I want to also just share this with the commissioners. I want to compliment Steve. When this legislation was passed and signed by the governor and is soon to go into effect, I serve at the state level with Park and Rec districts, California Association of Recreation Park Districts. And immediately the executive director for that association thought, oh my gosh, this is a big change, without knowing the essence of the legislation. So, I'm glad I had the opportunity to interact with him, but then I turned him on to what Steve knew about it, because while the lion's share of work that was done by Steve and Bill and others.
I wasn't on that one.
Anyway, long story short, it was
No.
well explained. You shared that with Matt Doherty, and he then in essence put the word out to all our member districts, and they're happy with that. Because little did he know that I think CSDA, you got them on board on with Hertzberg's bill. That's huge in my estimation. So I want to compliment Steve on that, because that's good news.
Okay.
It's what you pay me to do.
Oh.
That's all I have on the CEO's report. If there's any questions for me beyond that, I'm happy to answer them.
Any correspondence?
No, sir.
Anything we want to tell the executive director to do?
Not your laundry.
Not in open session.
Okay, we're gonna adjourn. We'll see you Thursday, December 1st, right here at 9 a.m. Thursday, December 1st. Thank you, everyone.